For Vibe 105, I'm Fatima Hussein, covering the Caribbean Tales International Film Festival. And in focus today is the animated series Sanduku that featured as part of the Big Pitch event at the festival. And joining me today at the Vibe 105 studios is the director and producer, Muniyra Douglas. Welcome to Vibe, Muniyra.
Thank you for having me.
What exactly is the Big Pitch?
So the Big Pitch was an event that Caribbean Tales put on in partnership with TIFF, and it gave mid-level career BIPOC filmmakers an opportunity to pitch their series or their feature film to a room full of industry professionals at a TIFF event.
Your project Sanduku was the only animation project across all programs at the festival. Tell us about your work, that is Sanduku, and what made it stand out from the rest.
So Sanduku is an animated series that I created and wrote, and I put together a team in order to create a proof of concept. And so it's about a young girl, a young troubled girl who's on the cusp of womanhood. And she discovers that her 10-year-old sister has been abducted and teleported to another planet by an alien cube called Sanduku. And so she goes on this harrowing journey along with her friends to rescue her sister and the other abducted Earth children. And so for me, it was really important to really show that uniqueness that animation can really have and really push the boundaries of it, as well as incorporating a lot of, African symbols, Caribbean mythology and characters. And as well, also using animation in a way to push emotionally charged stories as opposed to just focusing just on the visuals. So it's really important for me to really have a good story foundation, world building characters, and really kind of have that mirrored through the visuals as opposed to just relying on the visuals themselves.
What does the word Sanduku mean?
It's actually Swahili for box. So it's kind of where I got that concept from, to name after the alien cube itself, because it looks like a box.
How did the idea of the film come into being?
Two things. I was inspired by one of my favorite sci-fi films by Stanley Kubrick, 2001: A Space Odyssey. So the monolith that's in the story. Yes, it's based off a novel, but that's where I first saw kind of this image of this, just this geometric shape that really was unsettling, but at the same time, there's no real story to where it came from. And so I kind of always had that image in my head. And so I thought it would just be cool to reimagine it and, put a story to it. And the story between the two sisters, they have kind of this love-hate relationship. And I really love kind of looking at stories and creating stories that really look at these familial bonds, especially with sisterhood. And I kind of got inspired by my own sister relationship, where we kind of have our own kind of love-hate relationship. And just thought about, okay, what would they do or how far would they go, if I got abducted or something, and kind of looking at the lengths of which we might go for people that we love, even though we might have, some bad blood or history between us. So that's where I got it from.
Creating an animated series is certainly not an easy task, especially when working on a tight time frame. Talk to us about what went behind curating the series.
So I would say that it's still in early development stage. Something like sci-fi and fantasy, which is what the main genre is for the series, it's really heavily prevalent on world building, and the world itself is considered a character in its own. So that is something that I would love to put together a team to kind of really flesh that out. But really kind of looking at a lot of series and animation and non-animation that I'm interested in that have been my favorites. For example, some of the references I used were Samurai Jack, Ghost in the Shell, Arcane, even kind of just their, looking at the sisterly bond and even just the underworld that they have there, and really how they fleshed out a lot of the characters and the world building. What else? Even Castlevania, in terms of just creating this dynamic of these characters that we all kind of fall in love with, and we really follow the story. And it has great visuals, but the story itself is something as well that we kind of fall in love with and want to hear more of. Looking at references that I appreciate and references that really speak to me, how I helped kind of develop the story and kind of really push the boundaries to what I wanted to see.
Are there any plans to develop Sanduku into a complete series, like a multi-episodic series?
Yeah, there is. So one of the kind of conversations that came up during the pitch, as well as the conversation I've had with producers, is we're looking at partnering with a potential production company because of the workload that would be required and kind of the work that would be required to kind of flesh out the entire series for production purposes solely. But that is something that is completely on the books, and that is something that I've been having discussions with, and I'm interested in kind of working with people who are interested in kind of also creatively using their own dynamics and then also adding to what I already have and being flexible and kind of working with me and the team that I have as well. But that is definitely something that I'm looking forward to in the future.
Sounds wonderful. Black science fantasy has always been your forte, and I'm really curious to know what drew you into Black sci-fi.
I will say I was always interested in science fiction and fantasy just in general as a child. However, one thing that I did notice as I grew up, there wasn't a lot of characters that, or a lot of spaces for Black characters. And the few that were there, they definitely stood out. And so it was only as I got older, really, and kind of studying literature in university that I realized that there is a world and there is a space for it. And unfortunately, it's just maybe not as popular at the time, and it wasn't being as pushed commercially. And so for me, just the idea of exploring different worlds and being able to say that there is a future for Black people or for people of color, and to envision yourself in a fantasy element that somebody else might not have placed there for you, is for me kind of an act of rebellion. You know, yes, there's certain things that we kind of go through day to day, you know, all the struggles, but the idea of using your imagination to create a different scenario, a different environment that you can imagine that you're not just here on Earth, and you know there's other environments that you can be in, for me is kind of a sense of like freedom.
Unfortunately, it is a highly underrepresented industry, and it's not very usual to see Black women as curators of science fiction. How has the experience been navigating the industry as a woman of color?
I would say that because I'm still kind of more in the early mid-level kind of point in my career, there's still a lot that I have to learn, and and I'm eager to learn about just, you know, curating science fiction in general. But the opportunities are there, and I do see that a lot of people are really open to and warm to the opportunity of Black women really coming into our own, and seeing that as long as, you know, there is an understanding and education of what it is that we're speaking about, that there is a forum for it. However, there does have to be a bit more work in terms of, as you mentioned, you know, having it put in the forefront and publicly speaking about it. But there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and there is an opportunity for us. And we have been kind of creating the opportunities for ourselves as well. And so I'm really fortunate to be in the space and time that I am in, because, you know, 5-10 years ago, this conversation would be completely different. Whereas now I don't feel as alien to this environment as I might have been, you know, 5 or 10 years ago.
Coming back to the film, you did tap on some of the themes that you've explored in the film, but are there any other prominent themes that you have, or you plan to curate, or you plan to explore as part of the Sanduku series?
Yeah, I do. There's a lot of, you know, heavy themes that for the concept that I didn't explore, because of course, you know, it's just to show kind of the potential of the project, but there's definitely themes of redemption. I like the idea of, you know, not necessarily having a good versus evil and an all bad villain. I don't like the black and white villains where it's just like they're all bad. And so I like the idea of having characters that might be a bit more gray morally, have the opportunity for redemption. Whether or not that's taken, that's completely up to them, but there is the, the theme of redemption where I feel like that is a part of society, and that's something that we have to explore, and we really can't just always, it's this way or the other way. I would say another big theme for in the film itself, or in the series actually, is the idea of AI and technology, and looking at it as, whether or not it's a piece of work that is meant to serve us, or is there an opportunity for more? For example, at some point, Sanduku, although it was created for a purpose, it becomes sentient, and so it becomes aware of what it's doing. And so there is a point in time of where it might have certain, what we would consider human-like emotions. So what does that mean? So that kind of is explored, because that's always been something that I've been interested in, and I know Sci-Fi really kind of also looks at that as well. And so, those are the two other big themes that I really kind of want to look at and explore in the series, because for me, they're really prevalent.
How was the experience at the Big Pitch event?
It was really great. It was exhausting, but it was a great experience to kind of really just talk to people, network, and an opportunity as well to talk about my project, because I find at least for myself, and I find other creators and writers, we're so used to just, our head down and just writing kind of, and then we just say, hey, this is our work and you have to take it in and digest it. But the opportunity to kind of talk about it and to really give context as to where certain things were inspired from, and really connect with other people was really important to me, especially because even though the characters themselves, the two main characters are from a Black family, everybody, kind of across the board, they felt a connection to the theme and the story itself, because it was universal. And so for me, it was a great experience to just talk about my project, because I'm not necessarily used to just, kind of talking about, the experience and the work. And also to see other projects as well, and to see all the other amazing filmmakers, because that's a part of the process as well in terms of creating anything, is to see kind of your peers and see what they're doing, and really celebrating their work as well.
Where can our audiences watch the film?
Well, it will be at the Caribbean Tales Film Festival on Thursday, September 22nd, if I'm correct. And so it'll be part of the micro-credentials edition, where all the participants, their films are being shown. But then after that, it will be online on the Caribbean Tales Film Festival's platform. So they'll be able to watch it online afterwards.
That sounds wonderful. What can we expect to see from you next?
That's a big question. I will be resting and relaxing for a little bit, because this has been a very big process for me. But afterwards, I'll be definitely looking to develop a writing team, and look into getting to hopefully securing a production partnership as well, and to kind of flesh out the story and see where it goes.
Muniyra, it was wonderful chatting with you today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you once again for joining us, and congratulations on your film.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.